a soldering video to talk about soldering small switches for your ROV project. If you haven't reviewed the basics on how to solder, we'd recommend that you do that first prior to watching this video. For the small switches, this is what they look like. We are going to connect to these terminals. We're going to start with the power cord, which is the red and black wires. We're going to use our strippers. And again, I like to twist it around my finger. You're pulling straight out to expose the end of the wire. We want to make sure that we twist all of these wires together for a good mechanical connection. And for this switch, that's just a touch long for my preference. I like them to be just a touch below 1/4 of an inch, so I'm just going to trim it. And then on the switch, the power wires start in the center two terminals here. Okay, so we're going to put the wire through very much like you did a motor, and bend all of these wires up to create a hook. Okay, again, I'm pinching so that I get a good mechanical connection here. And I want to make sure that all of the strands of this wire are contained here. They're not fingers out anywhere. We have a very limited amount of space here that we're working with, and we want to make sure that these wires are not touching other places where they shouldn't be and causing a potential short. All right, again, we're going to use helping hands. Okay. I'm trying to put my insulation here as close to the terminal on the switch as possible. This one might be just a touch long, but we want to get as close as possible so that we don't have excessive amounts of wire showing that could cause us problems later. I'm cleaning my iron, and then again I'm going to dip my solder in flux. My iron goes on one side of the terminal and the solder on the opposite side. This should be a fast evolution. Something like that. As I go to move this, you see that it's not going anywhere, so I'm pretty confident that I have a good connection, good chemical connection. Okay, it's not moving anywhere, and you'll notice that I put my wire straight up, or as straight up as possible. That's a good idea, good practice, so that when you have a bunch of wires in here, hopefully they're not touching. Okay, so straight up. When you get your power wires on, this is what it might look like. One black, one red in the center two terminals. It doesn't really matter which one goes where, black on the right or left, it doesn't matter. But you notice that the insulation is pretty close to the terminal, and they are both nice and tight. They're not wavering or moving back and forth on the switch when I pull on them. You want to make sure that they're nice and tight so that you have good connectivity and you don't cause a potential short later with the two touching maybe where they shouldn't be touching.
Now we have our switch with the power wires connected to the two center terminals. So now we need to connect our Cat 5 wires to this switch. We have our Cat 5 wire. It's separated into the 4 color pairs, and it's stripped to the correct length. And I'm going to use this wire to demonstrate. The first thing I need to do is create a jumper wire. So I'm going to cut about 2 inches of this wire from the end of my Cat 5. And I'm going to separate the wires from the pair. And for my jumper wire, I need to strip both ends. With this short wire, sometimes it's difficult to get a hold of. I like to use my thumbnail to pinch it against my finger so I can pull it straight out of the stripper so that I'm not cutting strands. Again, I'm going to strip both sides of this wire, and then I'm going to separate the pair that I just cut it off of. And since I am working with the solid wire, solid colored wire, I'm going to use the solid colored wire here. I want to strip a little bit off of the solid colored wire here, and then I'm going to attach the jumper wire to the wire that's attached to my Cat 5 cable. I don't really worry too much about the ends of the wire. What I'm really worried about is the ends of the insulation. I want to match the ends of the insulation so that they are in the same place. I make a positive cross on the wire so that when I twist them together, they stay positively crossed, and they twist together very tightly, and they twist together very well. And I also make sure to twist the strands on the other side of the jumper. Then I'm ready to attach to the switch. So I'm going to put my switch in the helping hands. And my twisted together wire is too long for my taste. I like to have that about 1/4 of an inch. Make sure it's still well twisted together. And then I'm going to put that through the hole in the terminal. Okay? If you need to use your needle nose pliers, that's okay. Get your L hook. Get your L hook started well. Get your wires up onto the terminal. Pinch them together with your needle nose pliers. I have a lot of strands laying around that are just poking out where I don't want them to be. I need to wrangle those in and get them set so that my strands are together, and I have a nice mechanical bond without a lot of stray stuff happening there. And then I'm going to put that into my helping hands, ready to go for soldering. Again, with my iron, a little clean, add some solder puddle for heat transfer, dip my solder in the flux just to get a little bit of that extra flux on there for this process. Then my solder puddle is going to go on the back side, and I'm going to add solder to the side that's closest to me. And it should be a relatively fast process. and I look. I make sure that I don't have any stray strands. Okay, make sure that everything is tight and ready to go. This wire, my jumper wire, is going to go across and cross to the other side. And kitty corner. When I'm done, it's going to look like this. I have my red and my black wires attached to the center terminals. I have the wires coming from my Cat 5 attached to one side of the switch. The jumper wires cross kitty corner. That cross is very important. That cross is what makes it so that the switch will operate the motor in two directions. So I move the switch one way, the motor turns clockwise. I move the switch the other way, the motor turns counterclockwise. So I have two directions for my ROV. And then my jumpers are also soldered in place. Insulation close to the terminal. No wires are, there's no possibility that any of these wires are going to touch any of those other wires except where they're insulated. So I don't have any short circuits. And there it is.